when we look at what happens hormonally, it's really the loss, I think, of, and correct me if I'm wrong, of estradiol. So estradiol goes away, and then all of a sudden collagen goes away. And for many of us, we just start looking in the mirror and we're like, whoa, what is going on? And it's a little, I can just say as a woman, it's a little startling to see yourself age. And then you start wanting to go into the Botoxes and the fillers, and you're like scrambling for a solution. So can you talk a little bit about what is happening to our skin after 40, and why do we see changes in the mirror and the reflection that is looking back at us?
Yes. So first of all, your kind of conversation starting with estradiol is like a very good conversation because it's the easiest one to make. That's kind
Yeah.
of what powers collagen production. But actually, where where I would like even to take a step back, and because for some women it could be actually the reduction of testosterone and growth
Oh.
hormone that
Mm.
that kind of shift that conversation for us. It could be actually again a part of like the changing in sleep pattern and the interaction with glucose or with insulin that would create that conversation. But really what we want to think of is the fact that once we are stopping to be a person that the body is orienting childbearing, the
Mm.
body basically says to the skin, hey, instead of being that communication organ for virality and vitality, this is like the most important aspect of the visual interaction
So
of the
true.
skin. it
Yes.
becomes it becomes basically more and more a barrier, more and more of that barrier between our environment and our body. And it really
Mm.
needs to preserve. What most people don't think about, probably don't know, but don't think about, is your skin is literally a messenger between the environment and your body. So how it interacts with UV pollutants, different things that are going on in the environment. We're now talking about coronal flares happening in the world. So that is a part of it. So it actually relays stress back to the brain. And that is very important for our brain to kind of preserve alongside other things. So it kind of says, you know what? I'm not into showing you that I'm, aesthetically or
Mm.
that I want to, that I'm,
Want to
childbearing or
reproduce. Yeah.
exactly. And that those are part of the changes that we're experiencing.
Yeah. Okay. You bring up such an important point, and it's really been at the root of what I've been teaching about the perimenopausal years is that there's so much that happens in the female body that's built towards reproduction.
Yep.
And so the challenge with that is once estradiol goes away and our body is not meant to be reproducing, we're not just losing, brain power. We're not just getting hot flashes, but there's this whole biochemical change that's going on. So what I just heard from you is your skin no longer becomes the organ that attracts people to you. Your skin becomes the organ that reflects something to you, which is what is the environments that you are putting yourself in. So what is that am I reading that right?
You are and it's not even such a like a top down type of process where the skin decides that it wants to be something else. Basically just abandons or slowly abandons or deprioritizes the
Mm-hmm.
communication of, again, of lifefulness in the skin, the youthfulness of the skin. It just slowly abandons it. It could be epigenetically, it could be basically not maintaining genes eh, that are connected to collagen production, hyaluronic
Mm.
production, hyaluronic acid production, elastin production, the usage of all of those things. It could be what we know as kind of the hallmarks of aging, the names that we give the different dimensions of aging, the different verticals of aging, and how they basically get abandoned by the skin. Less mitochondrial function, for example, or even less mitochondria per cell, etc., etc. Really, it goes. That's why I like to tell a broader story, because what I'm saying is, think of priorities, and the skin not prioritizing looks anymore. The skin is
Yeah.
prioritizing other things.
What is it? So what else is it prioritizing?
It actually becomes more of a barrier between the environment and our body. So basically, the more sun damage we experience, the more we are exposed to like artificial light or EMFs or pollution, heavy metals, the more the skin gets damaged, but also things start to seep into the body, whether it is damaging the, your connection between your skin and your brain, which is called the skin brain axis,
Wow.
whether it is damaging your skin barrier and allowing different contaminants kind of to pass through, or different irritants to affect the inflammatory levels of the skin. So the skin really shifts to battle these things. It's not necessarily by a conscious decision, it's just by an overwhelming amount of assault that happens with time and gets accumulated. And really, we really can think of skin aging as the accumulation of unrepaired damage. So the more unrepaired damage there is, the more it needs to address that damage, not necessarily maintain its youthful state.
So if let's use me as an example, I was a competitive tennis player. So I grew up on a tennis court. We in the 70s and the 80s when we weren't really thinking about, sunblock as much. And I often have asked myself as I move through my 40s and 50s if the sun damage from my younger years is what I'm seeing now and reflecting now. So do you take the damage from your younger years into those perimenopausal years and they just get more amplified at that moment?
Yeah, imagine, we get sun damage all the time, right? We get, different kinds of irritations all the time. When we're younger, our body has more resources to deal with it. And these resources also deplete, as we mentioned estradiol, but really these resources deplete as time goes on. And this is a snowball where the less we can deal with something, the more we kind of have to deal with the accumulation of it. And to answer your question specifically, yes, UV, even though I like to say that when we live in a Western world, UV is not the number one worry we should address. UV creates damage which is extremely hard for the skin to repair, because it literally fuses parts of your DNA together. It literally renders them inoperable. So it's very difficult for your skin to kind of bounce back off of that. I'm not saying that it's impossible, not saying that it's the end of the world, but it is, again, what we're looking at is just accumulation statistics. And kind of as time goes on, you're facing an uphill battle.
Yes.